Okay, so welcome back to Ride or Die, the podcast, where we talk everything migration, no more boring legislation, no sugarcoating, just real stories, real experiences, and real talk.
Yeah,
So, Sunny,
today we're going to talk about the myths, like the rumors, the assumptions, the nonsense about registered migration agents.
and to break it all down, we brought in someone who needs no introduction in the migration student world. The man, the myth, the EXO legend, I believe, Joe.
Oh well,
Hi,
I'm not
Joe.
sure if I can live up to that kind of introduction, but I'll try my best.
Yeah, can you
Yeah.
please introduce yourself? Who are you?
Well, my name is Joe, Joe Gao. I'm a registered migration agent. I qualified, I think is the word, back in 2022. Although it took me a little while to get going. So I've been doing this probably for coming up like full time about 3 years now. Um, and yeah, I like to think that I finally have some idea of what's going on in my job. I can't promise that I always have the right ideas, but yeah, I enjoy what I do, which is one of the benefits. And yeah, I just like helping people. I like talking to people. So yeah, I'm pretty. That's me.
Huh, nice to meet you. I'm going to ask you a very important question.
Okay, all right.
So, myth number one, people think that registered migration agents, we earn big money. They think we're out here making six figures in our sleep.
Mhm.
Why do you think people believe RMAs earn crazy money? And what's the reality?
Oh, okay, that's a good one to start with. I okay, so I guess from my point of view, I came to this country like many of the you guys and many people who are studying the course. You're migrants. That's why you've developed a passion and an interest to go down into this field. And most of us, or well, many of us at least, will have either approached an agent in the past or known people who've approached agents and had friends and family who needed agents' help. And I remember when I first came here, it was my ex-partner at the time who had a student refusal. And then I remember us driving out to this middle of nowhere, on the outskirts of Sydney to find an agent. And then she was like, okay, I'll take your case to tribunal and I'll charge you $3,500 for it. And at that time, I was thinking, bloody hell, that's a lot of money. And I was like, oh, agents make so much money doing this kind of stuff. And then I obviously did my own skilled visa, and I know kind of the processes involved. And I thought, oh, that's quite a fair amount of money to charge to just fill out some forms, which is completely now I know it's not true, but I completely understand when clients and other people come to me and say those kinds of things because I was one of them and I thought that. Um, but I think that's where the myth comes from is when you're standing on the other side of the divide, you kind of see only how much you're paying. And for most of, many younger clients, who are early career people, they're $3,500, $5,000, which is the kind of range you're charging for these types of visas, is a lot of money. It's a couple, it can be a couple of months' rent in most cases. So I think that's where the myth maybe comes from to an extent. A lot of people would have got burned as well by like bad agents and things like that. So people probably think, yeah, all agents are like that, or at least they have some kind of misconception about how much we charge. But I think, doing this job, you kind of realize, yeah, it's not just filling forms, and I spend a fair amount of my time explaining that to my clients. And sometimes I have to remind myself, it's not just you're not just filling forms because you do this for long enough and you think, oh, you kind of get into a rhythm and you think, oh, okay, I know what to do here. This is a visa I've seen dozens of times already. And you can kind of fall into the habit of going through the motions a little bit. which is very, very dangerous, I think. So I do try to, well, I'm lucky that most of my cases are varied. I don't really have a lot of volume business. Um, so I do think that helps, but I think it's useful to just keep on reminding yourself, every case is individual, every case is different, and what you're charging for is for the benefit of, getting them the visa for their circumstance. It's not going to be, you're not, I don't believe anyway that this business is a commoditized business. I don't believe that you should be treating, two cases the same. And as a result, I think the charges can differ wildly, even if on the surface, one client, is similar to another. There can be circumstances which makes that the fees are very different. And I think that part of it also contributes to that misapprehension that agents can just charge, can make a lot of money because they think, oh, it's just random charging. But really, when you get to know each of the cases, this is the reason why this case costs another $1,000 over that case.
Mm.
So yeah, that's I guess the reason I think maybe, or at least part of the reason why people think we make a lot of money. And the reality, I suppose, is that some agents do make a lot of money. I know that there are agents out there who are making not even just six figures, but much, much more than that. And actually, I had a good conversation with a colleague just yesterday. And you guys may or may not know about this gold migration, which has shut down recently. And I'm not really naming any particular practitioners, by the way. It's not my job to judge what other people do. But I do know that there are some agencies who trade on volume, who trade on just getting numbers through the door. And that's a perfectly legitimate business practice, but it means that they can make a hell of a lot of money, which I'm obviously not doing. And I think, you do need a business mindset to kind of access those kinds of levels of of wealth and revenue. Um, but I don't think it's completely untrue. I just think most agents, the majority of agents aren't doing that. The majority of agents are making good money, and I think they deserve to because we do a hard job. But I don't think, you come into this business. If your motivation is to make money, then perhaps this is not the right reason for you to be in the business.
Mm. I agree on your comments. I mean, before I had the same thought as you before studying this. I'm like, these agents are charging so expensive and it's just filling forms until now, being able to be working in it. And I'm like, some nights I'm at night still writing these long letters or reports, and I'm like, oh my God, the time and effort that
Yeah,
goes into this.
yeah,
It's not just filling out that name and passport, but it's like the long submission letter that and then you have to edit it as well because you're like, it doesn't sound right, it doesn't sound convincing. So I'm like, yep, those charges are right. Like,
yeah,
yeah, and there are agents that do overcharge, and I do agree with that. But I guess is you kind of haven't been in their service as well, so you don't really know what they're offering to be able to charge that much as well.
yeah,
So I really
yeah,
can't comment on that. Yeah,
yeah.
but there was another one quite hot topic going around that was the idea that RMAs are like, somehow beneath immigration lawyers. Then, when people ask for references, they always say, don't go to an agent, go to an immigration lawyer. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think that I think that's definitely something which comes up a lot. I think that there is, look, it's a bit like, if you got a pain in your stomach, the first thing you do is not to go to a surgeon, right? You go to your GP. You go through the escalation levels in terms of investigating your condition. And I think that's similar when it comes to applying for visas and dealing with migration issues, is that lawyers obviously have their place. I'm not someone who kind of has a inferiority complex about lawyers. I think a lot of lawyers do, well, most lawyers do an excellent job. And you've had Tim, who's obviously a qualified lawyer now, and I've had the fortune to work with some really good lawyers in our, student cohort and beyond. Um, but for most people, when they're applying for their first visas or even, going to more complex subjects such as the tribunal, you don't necessarily need I suppose the level of speciality that a lawyer may bring. And in fact, in a lot of cases, now that the profession has been deregulated to an extent, a lot of lawyers, I see a lot of lawyers actually not re being very generalist lawyer practitioners who aren't really familiar with the migration space. So you might actually have RMAs who are more knowledgeable or at least more experienced than an equivalent lawyer would be. Having said that, I think there are services that lawyers can offer, which RMAs may not be able to, such as taking a case to the federal courts. There are obviously regulatory differences between how RMAs are regulated. Like we're subject to the Mara Code of Conduct. Lawyers are regulated by their law societies in their state. So there are differences there in what you can and cannot get from a lawyer in terms of things like privilege, client privilege, which as RMAs we don't have. So I think it comes down to look, what's the right tool for the job? And I would say probably for the majority of people, an RMA is cost effective, more cost effective than a lot of lawyers are, and also will be absolutely more than enough for to handle your case. But I think, yeah, sure, there are circumstances when lawyers are perhaps better. I don't necessarily think one is beneath the other, and I know a lot of the good lawyers will have the same opinion, is that RMAs are simply their colleagues who do a different type of job and maybe work with a different cohort in certain circumstances. But I think the two kind of go hand in hand. I don't think that's necessarily any kind of, who's better, who's worse throughout it all. And also the other thing to mention is that in our now that kind of I'm a few years on, I see a lot of my fellow cohort of students studying for their JDs, so studying to actually qualify as lawyers. And again, Tim on your previous podcast mentioned that he'd recently qualified as well. And I think that's a very well-established pathway and a very respectful pathway for a lot of people to follow. So again, it's not about, climbing the ladder as such. I don't think it's about that, but I think it's just equipping yourself with a different set of skills and a different set of qualifications that allow you to take on different types of jobs. So I think there is a difference in that sense, but I think those who kind of say our lawyers are better or RMAs are not as good, to be frank, they don't know what they're talking about. And you'll see that a lot on the forums and stuff like the Facebook pages, and it is frustrating to read it because as RMAs, we obviously you can take it a little bit personally, but I think you just got to get used to these things. It's people have all sorts of weird opinions, and I think just leave them be, and you do the best job you can, and worry about yourself.
Mm.
I think the name, like our profession, we're called agents.
Mm,
I think we deserve a different kind of title and name than just agents because all the studying, all the exams, and everything that we have to go through, and all the CPDs we have to take every year, I
yeah,
think we deserve a better name than migration
yeah,
agent.
yeah.
Mm.
I've always thought that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, 100%. And
Mm.
I don't know why, they don't do something about it. Well, it's beyond my pay grade to question those things, but I would fully support, a better name. Because yeah, I think yeah, agents sound, even the name, the word agent, it sounds kind of, you're not really doing anything. You're just a go-between. which
Mm.
Yeah.
is far from the truth for us. Yeah.
And people ask me, I've had quite a few clients who, even before the consultation, reach out to me and say, "Are you a lawyer or an agent?" And I'm like, um, I don't like the sound of it, but I'm a registered migration agent.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
the name of the occupation itself, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. And I think so I came from banking, right? I used to work in an investment bank, and then there was the very clear delineation in the public eye as well as within the industry of what's considered to be front office and back office. So front office is like the people who kind of do the glamour stuff like you see on Wolf of Wall Street and all those films. And then you've got back office, which is kind of more support functions. And I was part of the front office. I started off in the back office, and I became part of the front office. And I always thought um, it is it is very discouraging to be part of so when people talked about oh back they're just back office. I always thought that was a really a kind of short-sighted way to look at it, and it reflects more about the person who's saying it than it does on the people who are actually doing those functions. So I think you just gotta have a level of confidence and kind of I don't care about it attitude about it, like not let it bother you too much. But I think the most important thing is that you can go to bed at night thinking I've done the best job as I can for this client. I'm qualified and I know what I'm doing and I can be satisfied with what I've done rather than, the title is a title. That's
Mhm.
obviously we can fight for change, but up to a certain point is beyond our control. And then just let your work speak for itself. But I agree with you. I think the name absolutely sucks and you know they should change it.
Well,
Um,
I've got, yeah, one last question for you.
Yeah.
I think we briefly spoke about this earlier about how people think that migration agents, all we do is fill out forms and press submit. But can you please tell us what we actually do from the beginning to the end? It's not just filling out forms.
Yeah, yeah. It's not. A lot of times it's me staring at a screen and kind of daydreaming because I work for myself, so I, I have to say I'm not the best with time management because I tend to procrastinate a lot and I like to think I do my best thinking when I'm procrastinating because I'm kind of thinking through how to deal with the case, but I do spend a hell of a lot of time on the news and stuff like that, just kind of letting things percolate through my brain. But no, the serious answer is that the way I see it is that my job is to understand the law, interpret the law, and explain the law to the client, and then make a representation to the best advantage of my client as to how the law applies. So yes, that does involve form filling because that's how we get the information between us, our clients, and to the department. But that's like, saying, I don't know, all a chef does is cook food. That's simplifying it to a very basic extent, right? So I think the case management is really important. It's starting from, when the client first or an inquiry first reaches your desk. And oftentimes they're very vague because, complex subjects, even clients have difficulty understanding their own situation. So you have to kind of decipher that from what they've written to you. You have to know what questions to ask them in order to understand and identify where the risk factors are. And then once you've got, your head around all of that, you have to explain to the client, look, here are your options, here are your issues. Here's what we need to address in order for you to potentially get this visa. And here are the reasons why, certain factors could fail. Um, so that's how I approach the first kind of interactions with the client. Once they sign on with you, you would then do a more in-depth dive into the documentation that they have to the actual kind of nitty-gritties of, they might tell you, oh, I've been unlawful, but, have they been unlawful for 1 day, 1 week, 1 year? All of those things mean different things, right? So I think that's where you earn your money as a client. Sorry, as a migration agent is where you kind of identify the nuances within the case. You pick out the bits that need to be picked out, and crucially, it's also about knowing what not to say because a lot of times clients come to me and they want to, spill their guts out to the department about 100 different things, which oftentimes are completely irrelevant, but could jeopardize their case because they could open up all sorts of doubts in the case officer's mind. And that, I'm not saying to hide anything to the department. You should never, absolutely ever do that. But there's a difference between talking about something that is needs to be addressed versus talking about something that is not relevant and is only going to, slow down or be detrimental to the processing of the application. So I always make sure that my client can understand the differences between those things. And we focus on the things that need to be addressed. So that's where, again, as an agent, that's where your expertise and that's where your knowledge comes in because you'll look at, you'll look through legend, you'll look through previous cases, you'll look through OSLI for presidents and stuff like that. Um, and you'll be able to identify those factors for them. And then, yeah, making the application yourself, obviously, you've got to fill out the forms, you've got to write your submissions, and that's where I think probably for most people, especially first starting out, the heavy lifting comes in, is when you are actually, writing those submissions. Because as you go on, I will say in the beginning, I probably would have done a submission with every application. As you kind of get further on in your career, you kind of understand which ones need a submission, which ones don't. Not saying that, you should be lazy and not write a submission at all, but sometimes if it's a straightforward case or if it's readily understandable, maybe a few small strokes of the pen is better than, writing reams and reams that the case officer has to then get their head around about something that is completely obvious, right? So again, your discretion, your experience, all of that plays into your role, more than just form filling. The form filling is probably takes me about 15 minutes for most applications. But it's about knowing what to fill out, what to write, what not to write. I think that's the yeah, the majority of where your work lies.
Mm, okay. So, but Joe, I just heard you're not just an RMA, but you're also now a lecturer at ETS. How did that happen? How did you score that position? And what do you enjoy most about teaching these future RMAs?
Just to be clear, I'm not a lecturer. I think to be a lecturer is like a full-time, title. I have taught a few sessions at UTS. I don't remember what the exact title is, but it's something like, industry liaison or something like that. So I don't want to just like, if someone asks me, are you a lawyer or an agent? I'm like, no, well, I'm a RMA. I'm not a lawyer. I make it very clear. I'm not claiming to be a lecturer. But I have, yeah, done a couple of sessions with the students, and I'm hoping that next semester I'll do the same. So yeah, what I like about doing it, I like talking. I like telling people. Well, I like telling people things. Um, sometimes they don't listen, but that's up to them. Um, uh, but I like, getting people to understand things. I think I like explaining things. And that's what I like most about doing the teaching stuff is it also gives me an opportunity to make sure that I understand the matters myself because
Mm,
there's no better way to test your own knowledge than to try and explain something to somebody. Um, So it helps both the student and yourself really. Um, I don't enjoy probably, the pay. You don't get paid that well actually doing the teaching. So, you get paid okay, but I make more money in my day job. But I do enjoy, especially when the students they ask a question that makes me think, oh, this person gets it, or this person understands what what the intrinsic basic
Yeah.
fun ideas are and knows the kind of questions they should be asking. Sometimes it can be a little bit, because I think I was the same when I was at UTS. I never used to, with these video kind of teaching sessions, you kind of don't you tend to sit back and not ask questions, or you don't want to be the person who kind of puts their hand up and things like that. So I can't blame people for not doing that. But obviously I like it when people ask questions and it's interactive. I think, if my entire session was that, I'd be happy with that. So, if anyone's listening to this and doing the course and you know, you want to make your teachers happy, I'm sure most teachers will probably quite enjoy people asking questions. Otherwise, it's just, an hour of me talking to a screen, and I don't know if anyone's really even listening. So yeah. But no, it's very interesting, and I do enjoy it. It also takes me out of my day job, which is, you have a day when it's full on with clients, and you think, oh, the last thing I want to do is talk to think about cases, so then you can kind of extract yourself and kind of talk about theoretical stuff. So yeah, that's good.
You must have been a really good student when you were studying. Made an impression.
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think I was probably, just bumbling along, and I never came into this profession, like into the course, thinking really that I'll make a career out of it. And 3 years later, I mean, it's not been long, so but I do really enjoy it now that I'm doing it. I think doing the course, I don't know about you guys, when I first started doing the course, I was very unsure if this was the right thing, because will you get clients? That's the biggest thought I think in most people's heads, or can I get a job if you're looking to become hired by an agency? Um, it's very daunting because you don't know, you're spending all this money on the course and you're like, I don't really know what's going to come out of it. Um, but I just want, yeah, if again, any students are listening, it is easy if you're good at what you do, you will have clients. And if you're good at what you do, you'll always find people who are ready to give you the opportunity to hire you, or to either, as an employer or as a client. You don't need to worry about that. There are, you look at the numbers coming into Australia every year, there's more clients out there than there are, that you'll have capacity for.
Mm.
The most important thing you can focus on as a student is just to really understand the course content, really understand the law, and then try to be as good an agent as you can, and then the business will follow. So I wouldn't say I was a good student, but I think I found interest in it. And when you're interested in something, you probably do better than something your heart's not really in it.
Mm.
Mm, yeah. Well, when we were studying, I decided I had very big financial motivation because
Hmm.
of the misconception.
Yeah.
And then throughout the course, it got to a point because we were on studying online and we had jobs, we had other things to do, and then it's studying law, so it was my life and plus extra work for
Yeah.
like 2 years, and it got to a point where, well, it's too late to give up now.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I think, and then after we finished the 305,
Yeah.
the whole course, Winnie and I were motivated. We were like, we got this, we can do capstone, blah blah. And then after that, we got registered and then we started actually working and we were like, what is this occupation? Like it made everything was like, oh my God, we're gonna become RMAs, it's gonna be great. And now we're like, is it too late for a career change?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you guys are incredibly brave because I did, for me, I had just migrated, like fully migrated to Australia when I started the course, and I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So I was like, didn't really have much to lose. I know you guys, Sunny, at least when I heard the other podcasts, you have your own business and you have commitments and you have a family. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, if I had, bloody kids running about, or if I already had a job, I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't have never finished this. So kudos to you guys. And I mean, do you find that now that you are RMAs, and I'm sorry to ask, flip the asking role, do you find that when you are doing this job, that you, I suppose, find it rewarding enough to say, well, I went through all that pain. And I know, there would be bad times, etc. There's bad times in every job, but do you find it rewarding? Do you find like this is challenging you? Do you find this is a career that you can really grow into and maybe give up your other jobs? Maybe, I don't know.
Winnie, you go.
Mm. Um, I haven't gotten up to that stage yet, to be honest. I mean, it's rewarding when you see the results from a client getting the grant and everything, the afterwards. But, because we're so new into this field, like we haven't really seen much of those grants come through yet.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
it's probably, I haven't probably found it as much as rewarding as I kind of, hoped it to be starting out this career. And obviously
Mm,
and I think that's why me and Sunny sometimes question ourselves, like, is it time for, like, is there a chance for a career change? Because we came in with the same misconception of, you can make big monies, you're just filling out forms, like, not too much involvement. You can
yeah.
still have a work family balance.
Yeah.
But since coming into this field, I noticed I'm at the office until like past 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I come home to my kids, but sometimes I'm just so involved in the case that I feel like I can't leave it behind, and it's just always in that my mind when I'm getting my kids to sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I'll be able to find it's a my ending job. But to be honest, at this stage, I probably haven't yet.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
What
I
about you,
noticed with
Sunny?
this job, it's like, okay, I'm gonna finish work at 5 p.m. and I walk out of the office, but I'm still thinking about cases.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
so it's really hard to like, okay, I'm done with work. And
Yeah.
that's just 7 days a week because you're
Yeah.
always thinking about one of your clients.
Yeah.
Um, the most rewarding thing about this occupation is that people trust you, and
Mm.
this level of trust, they trust me more than their own boyfriends or partners. Do you know what I mean? They tell me everything, and people actually rely on me. And
Yeah.
the fact that this is such a powerful job. Like,
Yeah.
forget about the money and whatever. I can actually help someone's or a whole family's life. Like, I can
Yeah.
change it.
Yeah.
That's the rewarding part. But at the same time, my shoulders are heavy
Yeah. Yeah.
because there is no guarantee.
Yeah.
But I think I'll get used to it. I think I'll get used to becoming numb.
I think I mean to take your point, Winnie, and also your Sunny, is that almost the fact that you guys care about it so much means that you're doing a good job. You could be one of the, I'm sure, multiple agents out there who are just doing it for a paycheck, who doesn't really care about your clients. And, okay, they get a grant, great, you're happy. They don't get a grant, it's no skin off your nose, right? It's their life, whatever. But the fact that you're, I don't want to say struggling, but you're obviously grappling with all of these feelings, especially so early on, is a great sign, actually. I think that your your clients are going to recognize that over time, and your clients are going to refer you to their people, and then you're going to get further referrals from that. So I think, I don't know how. I think Sunny, you said you've been registered for about 4 months, and I don't know about you, Winnie, but you're still at this level, at this stage of your careers as agents. I think it's kudos to you guys that you are taking it seriously. And yeah, I have no doubt, if you are doing that, then you'll be really successful. And the other thing is you mentioned, Winnie, that, with the long lead up times to the results, that's like really draining. I think that's one of the worst things about this job is that you do all the work and you don't get to see the results until, several months later. And by then,
Yeah,
you get a grant, and you're happy, but like you've already got, a half a dozen other cases that your mind is already constantly on. So you don't really get to
exactly.
enjoy that moment
Yeah.
so much. But I think, that's just comes with the territory, and over time you'll learn to. Well, I don't know if I've got there yet, but I hope that you'll get the time to really savor your successes. And I think probably a year down the line or 2 years down the line, it'll be interesting to see how you feel, because I guarantee you that you'll I think your answers will be a lot different than today, because yeah, I think I see that you guys, you know, have have the passion, or at least have the conscientiousness to go far. So yeah, yeah, it makes me really feel positive and happy to hear that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, I think it's just because we struggle to just like the initial stage, like just gathering information and everything already took so long, and
Yeah.
the consultation takes so long, and it would have been good if the department just goes, okay, you've submitted, I'll give you an answer in like two
Yeah.
weeks. But here
Yeah.
you're like sometimes like a year later, and like
Yeah.
you don't completely forget your client, but the client's somewhere in the back of your mind, but it's not when you get that email or something, it's not the first thing you think of, it's that
Yeah.
client. And
Yeah.
then it just starts to flash back like the amount of effort that you put
Yeah.
in, but hang on, I can't focus on it now because I've got a whole lot of new
Yeah.
cases I need to get pushing.
Exactly. And I think you get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't really want, well, look, it's not bad to want to make money. And if the
Yeah.
reason why you wanted to do this is because it was good money, well, that's fine. That's what we all want to do, right?
Mm,
Nobody wants to work for free. Um, but I think the money almost comes later. Like there will come a point where I'm sure you'll have more clients that than what you know what to do with, right? There will be a
mm,
time when you're like, I'm not gonna I don't want to take that case because I'm already so full and so busy, and also the money then doesn't actually become your biggest motivation. I
mm,
think you almost have to do
Mm.
the time first, and then the first few months and maybe first year, it's like you're going through the motions. You're kind of trying to learn, as well as, especially because you're both sole practitioners. I guess you're not working for a larger agency. You kind of have to do a lot of learning on the fly. And
mm,
without that support network, and this is why we have the WhatsApp groups, is to provide some of that support that you would normally get in a work environment, but we don't
mm,
really get that, right? So once you've gone through that process, I think very, very quickly you'll find actually this is, not only just professionally rewarding, but actually financially rewarding as well. So I'm sure you'll find that out in time. Not that I can say that I'm very well paid, but I think most agents wouldn't, still need to pay. We all need to pay our bills, right? So the fact that most agents are still in the business after a few years probably tells you that it's a decent way to make a living. But
mm.
ultimately, the motivation has to be not just financially, I think. But yeah.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for sharing your opinion today, Joe. Well, because we're all busy RMAs, we've got consultations lined up.
Yeah.
So, we have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
If there's another topic we want to discuss with you, we will invite you again in the future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you.
It's been a pleasure.
And then for anyone watching, please follow for our future podcasts. And yeah, thank you, Joe.
Take care. Bye.
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 Cool.
Cool.